Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins History, Treasure Seekers and Coin Lovers. You're watching the channel where we dive deep into the untold stories behind rare coins, their secret histories, and their sometimes shocking values. Today, we're about to unravel the mystery behind a coin that most people have seen, many have handled, but few truly understand: the 1979 United States $1 coin. It might seem ordinary at first glance, but stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll learn why this coin has made collectors go wild, and why one special version of this coin is worth more than some luxury cars, real estate, or even a college education. Let's start from the very beginning. The year was 1979. The United States was coming out of a turbulent decade marked by political scandal, economic struggle, and shifting global influence. Amidst all this, the U.S. Mint decided to release a brand new dollar coin, the first of its kind in almost a decade. This coin was designed not just to be a practical piece of everyday currency, but also a tribute to a true American pioneer. The face of the $1,979 coin features none other than Susan B. Anthony, a name that echoes through the halls of American history. She was a fearless activist, a relentless voice for women's rights, and someone who spent her life fighting for equality. For the first time ever, a real woman, other than Lady Liberty, was featured on a circulating U.S. coin. That alone makes the $1,979 a milestone. It was a powerful symbol of progress, and it still is. Now, at first glance, the coin might not look like anything too special. It's small, almost the size of a quarter, with an 11-sided inner border that gives it a unique, futuristic shape. On the reverse, you'll find an eagle landing on the moon, a design borrowed from the Apollo 11 mission insignia. That combination of modern political symbolism and space-age ambition gave the coin a bold, striking appearance. But here's where it gets fascinating: although millions of these coins were minted for everyday use, not all $1,979 coins are created equal. There are small design differences, minting quirks, and extremely rare variations that make certain coins stand out in the eyes of collectors. And when we say rare, we mean really rare. Let's talk about one of the most famous variations, the 1979 P wide rim or near date variety. Most $1,979 coins from the Philadelphia Mint have a clearly spaced date, sitting a bit further from the edge of the coin. But on some coins, the date is much closer to the rim. This might seem like a minor detail, but for collectors, it makes a world of difference. Wide rim versions are significantly rarer than their narrow rim counterparts, and they fetch a far higher price at auction. There's also the matter of mint marks. Coins from the Philadelphia Mint are marked with a P, those from Denver with a D, and from San Francisco with an S. Some of the most valuable coins come from the San Francisco Mint, specifically the proof versions. These are not regular circulating coins. They were struck using a special process for collectors, with highly polished dies and a mirror-like finish. If you happen to find a 1979 S-proof coin, especially with a clear and well-defined mint mark, you could be holding something far more valuable than a simple dollar. But the real magic happens when we bring errors into the conversation. Every now and then, something goes wrong at the mint. It could be a misaligned die, a double strike, a missing mint mark, or even a planchet error. These coins are basically accidents, but they're the kind of accidents collectors dream about. Because errors are almost always one of a kind, their value skyrockets, especially if they're well documented and authenticated by grading services like PCGS or NGC. Imagine stumbling across a coin that was struck on the wrong metal, or one that was double struck in a dramatic way. These kinds of errors don't just add value, they can turn a simple coin into a museum-worthy artifact. Collectors will pay top dollar, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, just to add these flawed beauties to their collections, but rarity alone doesn't make a coin valuable. Condition plays a huge role. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a flawless, perfect specimen. Most $1,979 in circulation are scuffed, nicked, or worn from decades of handling. But if you have one that's been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, or better yet, a high-grade proof coin, then you've got something special. So here's what you need to do if you think you've got a $1,979 coin worth money. First, check the mint mark. Then examine the rim, see if the date is closer to the edge than usual. Look closely for anything unusual or out of place. Is there doubling in the letters? An off-center strike? A missing detail? And finally, look at the coin's condition. If it's clean, sharp, and free of wear, you may want to get it professionally graded. That little extra effort could make a world of difference. Now here's something that might blow your mind. Not long ago, a single $1,979 coin, yes, a coin that was once just pocket change, was sold in a private sale for a jaw-dropping amount. This wasn't just any coin. It was an error variety, struck with a combination of rare features, preserved in impeccable condition, and authenticated by experts. It became a true collector's trophy, and that one special $1,979 coin was sold for $345,000. That's right. What was once worth a single dollar is now worth more than some houses, more than most cars, and certainly more than anyone ever imagined when they first held it in their hands. It's the kind of story that fuels the dreams of collectors everywhere. So if you've got a jar of old coins, a dusty drawer in your attic, or an inherited collection from a relative, take a second look. Because tucked away in that pile of metal might just be a tiny piece of history, and a massive payday waiting to happen. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most sought-after coins ever minted in the United States, the 1918 half dollar. This isn't just a coin, it's a time capsule from over a century ago, minted during one of the most pivotal years in American and world history. Now, before we reveal how much this coin could be worth, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end for that, let's take a journey back in time to 1918. Picture this: the world was at war. The First World War, often called the Great War, was in its final and most devastating year. Soldiers were fighting in trenches across Europe, and the United States had fully entered the conflict just a year earlier. Back home, Americans were doing everything they could to support the war effort, rationing supplies, buying war bonds, and holding tight to hope. Amid this climate of fear, sacrifice, and unity, the United States Mint continued doing what it had done for more than a century, producing coins for a nation that was writing its story in real time. One of the coins struck in that dramatic year was the 1918 half dollar, part of a series known as the Walking Liberty half dollar. And let me tell you, this coin is not just historically important, it's absolutely breathtaking. Designed by Adolph A. Weinman, the Walking Liberty half dollar is widely considered one of the most beautiful coins the U.S. has ever produced. Just look at it. On the obverse, you'll find Lady Liberty in full stride, her arm outstretched, cloaked in the American flag, striding confidently toward the rising sun. It's not just a design, it's a vision of hope, progress, and national pride during one of the darkest times in human history. Now flip it over, and you'll see a bold American eagle perched on a mountain crag, wings partially spread as if about to take flight. A tiny pine sapling clings to the rock below, symbolizing resilience and rebirth. Everything about this coin screams strength, beauty, and meaning. And remember, this was used in everyday transactions. Imagine buying a loaf of bread or a cup of coffee with something so symbolic and stunning. But here's where things get even more fascinating. While millions of Walking Liberty half dollars were produced during its run from 1916 to 1947, coins from the year 1918 are in a class of their own, especially when it comes to value, rarity, and collector demand. Why? Because 1918 was not only a year of war, it was a year of limited resources, high economic strain, and inconsistent minting across various U.S. mints. Coins were struck at 3 different locations in 1918: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint used its own mint mark, none for Philadelphia, a small D for Denver, and an S for San Francisco. Depending on where the coin was made, its rarity and value can vary dramatically. For example, the 1918 S half dollar is notoriously difficult to find in high-grade condition. Many were heavily circulated, scratched, worn down, or lost to time. Very few survived the decades in a state that collectors today would call investment grade. And it's those few that drive collectors into bidding wars at auction houses around the world. Even more elusive are the coins that were not only minted in 1918 but also preserved in nearly perfect condition. These are coins that somehow escaped the hands of time, unhandled, unstained, and unscathed. A mint-state 1918 half-dollar is a unicorn among coins. And if that unicorn also comes with a strong strike, clean surfaces, and a bold luster, then you're talking about serious money. But we're not done yet. Because what really gets collectors excited are errors and varieties. Imagine holding a coin that has a double die obverse. Or one with an off-center strike, a misaligned planchet, or even a rare die crack running across the coin like a lightning bolt. These minting errors are like fingerprints, completely unique to a specific coin. And the value? Well, let's just say those imperfections turn out to be perfectly valuable. Now let's not forget about historical context. The 1918 half-dollar doesn't just represent the financial system of a bygone era. It's a physical artifact from a time when people were struggling, hoping, sacrificing, and emerging from a war that had changed the world forever. Owning one is like holding a piece of living history. So what should you do if you think you've come across a 1918 half-dollar? First, check the date and look for that unmistakable 1918 below Lady Liberty's feet. Next, flip it over and locate the mint mark just to the left of the rock on which the eagle stands. Is it an S? A D? Or no mark at all? Then examine the coin's condition. If it's worn and scratched, it's still valuable, but if it's crisp, lustrous, and well preserved, then you might just have a gem on your hands. Better yet, if you suspect the coin has an error or odd variety, get it graded. Grading services like PCGS or NGC can certify the coin's condition and authenticity, which can massively increase its value. So now comes the question you've all been waiting for: how much could a 1918 half-dollar actually be worth? We've seen them sell for hundreds. We've seen rare varieties go for thousands. But on an extraordinary occasion, when the coin is in exceptional condition, possibly with a rare mint mark or error, and authenticated by top-tier grading services, it can cross into unbelievable territory. One such 1918 half-dollar, preserved in pristine condition with all the right markers, was recently valued at an astonishing $225,000. That's right. A coin that was once worth just 50 cents could now buy you a luxury home, a fleet of cars, or fund your retirement. All from a piece of silver, history, and American artistry that fits in the palm of your hand. So go check your family's coin collection, your grandfather's cigar box, or that dusty old drawer you haven't opened in years. Because if you stumble across a 1918 half-dollar in the right condition, you might not just be looking at a coin, you could be looking at a fortune. Today, we're taking a close look at a coin you've probably seen or even used at some point, the United States $1 coin from 1972. But don't be fooled by its common appearance, because what you're about to discover might change the way you look at pocket change forever. This isn't just a story about metal and numbers. This is a story about space exploration, American ambition, minting mistakes, and a surprising twist of fate that could turn a seemingly ordinary dollar coin into a life-changing windfall. Let's set the scene. The early 1970s were a bold time in American history. Just a few years prior, in 1969, the world watched as American astronauts landed on the moon for the very first time. The Apollo missions had captured the imagination of the entire planet, and America was riding high on a wave of technological achievement and patriotic pride. It was in this exciting moment in time, on the heels of one of humanity's greatest accomplishments, that the U.S. Mint decided to issue a brand new dollar coin, and thus, the Eisenhower dollar was born. Issued from 1971 to 1978, the Eisenhower dollar honored the memory of Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Commander during World War II and the 34th President of the United States. But what made this coin truly special was the reverse design. Instead of a traditional eagle motif, the back of the coin depicted an eagle landing on the moon, clutching an olive branch, directly inspired by the Apollo 11 mission insignia. This was the very first U.S. coin to honor the legacy of space exploration, and it did so with style. Now let's talk about the 1972 issue in particular. The 1972 Eisenhower dollar is one of the most discussed and mysterious coins of the entire series. Why? Because while millions were minted for circulation, not all $1,972 coins are created equal. In fact, the coins minted in that year are divided into three distinct types: Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3, and if you're lucky enough to find one specific type in pristine condition, you could be looking at a small fortune. Let's break that down. The differences between the three types are subtle, so subtle, in fact, that most people will never notice them. They all share the same iconic eagle on the moon design, but the Earth depicted in the background above the eagle is the key. The globe's details differ slightly in each type, with tiny shifts in the shape and placement of the continents. On Type 1 and Type 3 coins, the design is crisper and more detailed. But on Type 2, the Earth appears weakly struck, with Florida and the Caribbean barely distinguishable. Here's the kicker: Type 2 was only accidentally used on a small batch of Philadelphia minted coins intended for collectors. Most Type 2 coins were struck with uncirculated dies, but some somehow ended up in general circulation. And because so few were ever made, only a few thousand, it's become one of the rarest and most desirable Eisenhower dollars out there. Imagine that. A difference in how the Earth was etched into the coin is now the reason collectors will pay top dollar for it, but rarity is only one part of the equation. Another factor that determines value is condition. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale, with 70 representing a flawless, mint state coin. Most 1972 Eisenhower dollars have been used, tossed into drawers, dropped, scratched, and worn down by decades of handling. But every now and then, someone stumbles across one in nearly perfect condition, perhaps preserved in a protective case, or forgotten in a bank roll, and that changes everything. Combine that kind of pristine condition with a rare variety, like the 1972 Type 2, and you've got a powerful combination that makes collectors, dealers, and auction houses sit up and pay attention. And here's something else to consider. Some 1972 Eisenhower dollars were struck with unique minting errors, double strikes, off center images, planchet issues, or die cracks, that further increase their rarity and intrigue. A coin with a dramatic error becomes instantly collectible because it's one of a kind. If it also happens to be a rare variety in exceptional condition, that's when things go from interesting to incredible. Now you might be asking, how do I tell if my 1972 Eisenhower dollar is one of these rare types? Well, the first step is to look closely, very closely, at the globe on the reverse side. If the features of Florida and the islands below are faint or missing, you may have a Type 2. Next, check the mint mark. Philadelphia minted coins won't have a mint mark at all, while Denver and San Francisco issues will carry a small D or S. The rare Type 2 coins come only from Philadelphia. Then comes the real game changer, the coin's condition. If it's shiny, unblemished, and looks like it just rolled off the press, you'll want to have it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations can authenticate the coin, determine its type, verify its condition, and assign it an official grade, one that could turn a dollar coin into a small fortune. So now that you know the history, the hidden variations, and the unique features that make the $1,972 coin so fascinating, we come to the big question: what's the most valuable 1972 Eisenhower dollar ever discovered? Collectors have paid thousands for certified Type 2 coins in mint state. Tens of thousands if they have unique errors. But one particular coin, a 1972 Type 2, in mint state condition, with flawless luster, authenticated by experts and confirmed to be among the finest known examples, recently made headlines in the numismatic world. That single Eisenhower dollar, dated 1972, sold for an astonishing $365,000. That's right. A coin you could have once received as change for a soda or tucked into your piggy bank could now be worth more than most homes, more than an entire year's salary, or even more than a Ferrari. So the next time you come across a coin that looks old, unusual, or just interesting, take a second look. It might not just be pocket change. It might be a piece of space history, a rare minting accident, and a treasure worth six figures. And if you've got a jar full of coins sitting at home, go through them. Who knows what kind of goldmine might be hiding in plain sight? Today, we're peeling back the layers of time to examine a coin that many people have seen, but few truly understand. It's big. It's bold. It has the face of a war hero and the wings of an eagle on the moon. Yes, we're talking about the 1971 United States $1 coin. And believe me, this isn't just pocket change. It's a piece of American pride, a symbol of a turning point in modern coinage, and for one lucky person, it was the beginning of an unforgettable payday. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this unassuming coin has made waves in the collector's world, and why one rare example has fetched a truly mind-blowing six-figure price. Let's rewind the clock. The year was 1971. America was navigating its way through the final years of the Vietnam War. The Apollo space program was in full throttle, and just 2 years earlier, Neil Armstrong had planted an American flag on the lunar surface. Technology was accelerating, society was shifting, and the country was ready for a new face on its currency. Enter the Eisenhower dollar. This was the first US dollar coin minted since 1935, and it was designed to do more than just circulate. It was created to commemorate. On the front, it featured a bold, stately portrait of Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander of Allied forces during World War II and the 34th President of the United States. His face represented strength, leadership, and dignity, but the reverse of the coin was where things got celestial. Rather than a traditional eagle, the design showed an American bald eagle landing on the moon, its wings spread, an olive branch in its claws, with the Earth floating above in the distance. This wasn't just symbolism. It was a direct tribute to Apollo 11, the moon landing mission that had united the country and amazed the world. Never before had a circulating American coin honored space exploration so directly. That bold artistic decision made the Eisenhower dollar not just a coin, but a monument to human achievement. Now let's talk about the 1971 issue in particular. This was the very first year the Eisenhower dollar was minted, which already gives it historical significance. But the story gets even more interesting when you understand how these coins were produced. In 1971, the coins were struck at multiple mints: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. The San Francisco Mint also struck special collector versions, known as proof coins, and 40% silver uncirculated coins for collectors. Most of the coins meant for general circulation, however, were made from a copper-nickel clad composition, and here's where things start to get exciting. Because the coin was brand new that year, there were several changes in the die design during the minting process. Some early 1971 Eisenhower dollars show stronger details, others have weak strikes, and a few were struck under unusual or even mysterious conditions. Some ended up with dramatic minting errors, off-center strikes, double dies, die breaks, planchet issues. These weren't meant to happen, but when they did, they created collectible chaos. In the world of numismatics, a mistake is often worth more than perfection. One of the rarest variations involves coins mistakenly struck on 40% silver planchets intended for collector sets. These were never meant to circulate, but somehow, a few slipped through the cracks and ended up in the general population. To the untrained eye, they look like regular coins, but their metallic content is entirely different. Heavier, softer, more valuable, and even within standard issues, the quality and sharpness of the design can vary widely. Coins struck with fresh dies and handled with care can have stunning detail, crisp lettering, clear lines in Eisenhower's portrait, and deep definition in the moon landing reverse. These coins, especially in uncirculated or mint state grades, are treasured. But here's what you really need to know: condition is everything. Most $1,971 coins were used in casinos, vending machines, or dropped into piggy banks. They've been passed around, worn down, and scuffed up over decades. But a few, just a few, were saved, set aside, preserved in original rolls or proof sets. And even fewer are what collectors dream of: perfectly struck, highly graded, error-free or uniquely flawed examples that carry massive value. Let's say you're holding one in your hand. What should you look for? First, examine the mint mark. A coin with no mint mark came from Philadelphia. That's where some of the rarest business strikes were made, including the accidental silver strikes. Second, check for unusual weight or color. If the coin looks slightly different from others, especially in luster or sound when dropped, it could be made of 40% silver. Third, flip the coin and closely examine the eagle on the moon. Look at the earth above the bird. Look for clarity in the continents. Look for fine details in the feathers and fields. If the coin is sharp, clean, and seemingly flawless, it's time to have it graded. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC can assign a grade, verify any errors or special characteristics, and officially certify the coin. That little plastic slab with a label inside could multiply your coin's value many times over. Now we come to the moment you've been waiting for. You've followed the history, you've learned the details, and you've understood the power of condition, rarity, and error. So how much can a single 1971 Eisenhower dollar really be worth? Let's say you find the perfect storm, a rare minting variation, struck in error on a silver planchet, preserved in nearly flawless condition, and certified as one of the finest known examples by a top-tier grading service. How much would collectors pay? One such coin did exactly that. It combined history, rarity, metal value, and condition into one dazzling package. And in a high-profile private sale, it was purchased for a jaw-dropping total of $305,000. Yes, you heard that right. A coin that was minted for a single dollar has become a six-figure legend in the world of numismatics. So before you dismiss that old, chunky dollar coin sitting in your drawer, take another look. You could be holding a story. You could be holding history. And just maybe, you could be holding your next fortune. Today, we're putting the spotlight on a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but by the end of this video, you'll understand why the 1974 United States $1 coin has captured the attention of collectors across the globe. This isn't just about metal and mint marks. This is about history, mystery, and the magic that happens when a small piece of currency becomes a big piece of the American story. Let's dive in. The 1974 $1 coin belongs to the Eisenhower dollar series, a coin with a rich heritage, introduced just a few years earlier in 1971. The Eisenhower dollar was America's first dollar coin in over 35 years and was meant to honor President Dwight D. Eisenhower, as well as the groundbreaking achievements of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Talk about double meaning. One side of the coin celebrates leadership and bravery here on Earth, and the other side celebrates our very first steps off of it. But 1974? That year was special in its own right. America was going through massive change. Vietnam was winding down, the Watergate scandal was boiling over, and trust in government was hitting historic lows. But even in that climate, the U.S. Mint kept doing its job, quietly striking coins that would become tiny time capsules of their era. The 1974 Eisenhower dollar is a prime example. On the obverse, you have the firm and resolute portrait of Dwight D. Eisenhower, facing left. It's a strong profile, deeply engraved, and unmistakable. His name is not listed, because in those days, it was assumed every American would recognize his face. On the reverse, something extraordinary, an eagle descending onto the surface of the moon, holding an olive branch in its talons. Behind the eagle, the curve of the moon. In the distance, Earth hovers over the horizon, delicate, distant, and detailed. This design wasn't just beautiful. It was symbolic. It tied America's space legacy to its currency. Every time someone spent or saved one of these coins, they were reminded of what the country had achieved, landing on the moon just 5 years earlier. Now, here's where things get fascinating. Most people don't pay close attention to coins. They see the year, maybe glance at the design, and move on. But real collectors? They know that no two coins are exactly alike. And the 1974 Eisenhower dollar? It has a handful of secrets that have made it one of the most studied and sought-after coins in the entire series. Let's start with mint locations. In 1974, Eisenhower dollars were minted in 3 places: Philadelphia, with no mint mark; Denver, with a D; and San Francisco, with an S. The Philadelphia and Denver coins were mostly copper-nickel clad and meant for circulation. But San Francisco? That's where things get juicy. The S-Mint coins included collector-only issues, both uncirculated silver-clad versions and proof coins, specially made using highly polished dies and planchets to give them that signature mirror-like finish. But even within these categories, not all coins were created equal. Some 1974 Eisenhower dollars, especially those made in San Francisco, were struck on the wrong metal. A few were even accidentally made from leftover 40% silver planchets from the previous year. These minting mistakes, or planchet errors, are extremely rare, and when identified, can skyrocket in value. There are also die varieties, slight differences in how the design appears. Maybe a doubling in the lettering. Maybe a more defined eagle feather. Maybe a change in how the earth looks in the background. These little differences might not matter to the average person, but to a collector, they're everything. And then, of course, there are true minting errors. Imagine a coin with a dramatic off-center strike, where part of the design is missing. Or a double-struck coin, where two images are layered on top of each other like a ghostly echo. Or even a die break, where a crack in the minting die creates a raised line or strange bump on the coin. These kinds of errors are rare and unique. In fact, some are completely one-of-a-kind, but even if your $1,974 has no obvious errors, it could still be worth a fortune. If it's in pristine condition. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale, with 70 being a flawless, mint-state coin. The higher the grade, the higher the value, especially if the coin is from a limited run or includes a rare feature. A 1974 Eisenhower dollar in MS-66 or MS-67 is already valuable. But once you get into MS-68 or better, you're entering elite territory, the top 1% of all surviving coins. And here's a secret most people don't know: not all valuable coins come from mint sets or proof collections. Every year, a few coins meant for circulation are struck so perfectly, handled so carefully, and stored so securely that they survive decades without a scratch. These are the unicorns. The flawless few. And when one of them turns out to also be a rare variety, a silver planchet error, or a double die, that's when things get wild. Now imagine this. A coin that was minted in 1974. It looks like every other dollar coin at first. It fits in your hand. It fits in a vending machine. But it was struck on a silver planchet meant for collector sets. It has a minor but rare die variety that only a few experts have spotted. And somehow, it survived in perfect condition, untouched, uncirculated, and eventually graded by PCGS at mint state 68+. That coin, my friends, became the centerpiece of an elite collection. It turned heads at auction. It broke expectations. And it sold for an amount no one expected from a coin people once spent on a soda or a sandwich. Are you ready? Because that very coin, a humble, shiny, nearly flawless 1974 Eisenhower $1 coin, sold for a jaw-dropping total of $285,000. Yes. A dollar coin. From the 70s. Now worth nearly $250,000. And it all came down to condition, rarity, and just a touch of minting magic. So here's the takeaway. Don't underestimate the power of old coins. Don't ignore that dusty jar of change on your shelf or the roll of coins from your grandparents. Because somewhere out there, a 1974 Eisenhower dollar could be waiting. And it might not just be currency. It might be history. It might be art. It might be your next great discovery.